glad you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I bought a Rubiks Cube today, and I am not giving up till I figure it out, and it's already doing my fucking head in. I thought I had it for a second today. I thought I'd figured out the algorithm, and then my mind just got all tangled up, and the Rubiks Cube ended up fucking all over the shop. Then I had to leave the house. Back in the day, I had a Rubiks Cube. Back when I was pretending to do university, instead of doing assignments, I would spend hours and hours on the Rubiks Cube. I think it's because I saw Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness jump in the back of the car, and he had a Rubiks Cube and he solved it in like 10 seconds. And in the movie, that showed how smart he was. So I was like, well, if I can do the Rubiks Cube, then I can also show people how smart I am in the back of taxis. And I would have fucked with the Rubiks Cube for like maybe a couple of hours a day for months. And I figured it out to a certain extent. I can get sides done. I just could never fucking complete it. And then I downloaded some instructions from the internet on how to do the Rubiks Cube, like directions. Twist this way, do that. I'm looking at the directions. I'm like, that's harder to understand than the fucking Rubiks Cube. So I threw them out. Then my mate said it's just an algorithm. And I had no idea what an algorithm was. So I was like, yeah, I know it's an algorithm. That's what I'm trying to work out, the algorithm. And I still don't really know what an algorithm is. The only thing I know about algorithms is my Facebook algorithm is fucking shit. The 3 people that come up on my Facebook the most, I just don't even want them to be alive. That's a bit harsh. I mean, virtually. I don't want them to be alive virtually. But I knew I was going to have to face my fear with the Rubiks Cube again one day. I knew I'd have to conquer it or just go insane. And the time has come. It's time for Boyle to revisit the cube. And I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to fucking conquer that cube. And I'm not going to look at any instructions either. Not only because I can't understand the instructions, because I want to figure it out myself. I actually pretended it was a gift for my son. I gave him the Rubiks Cube, handed it over to him. He fucked it up and gave it back to me to solve. He's like, Dada, can you do this? I'm like, one day, son, one day. And then I tried to do it, and obviously I can't do it. And he's sitting there watching, expecting me to be able to do it. And after about 10, 15 minutes of watching me do it, he's like, well, you're a failure. First, you can't fly a fucking kite. Now you can't do a Rubik's Cube. And I'm trying to explain to him, the Rubik's Cube is fucking difficult. It's not like you can just do it. It's not like you can just do the Rubik's Cube. It's not an easy thing to be able to do. Unless you're an 8-year-old Japanese boy who can do one in each hand blindfolded. I'll tell you the real reason I bought the Rubik's Cube. It's because I've been listening to this Donald Hoffman guy, this scientist. I talked about him the other day, who has a new theory on consciousness and all that bullshit. But he's been talking mathematics and physics and all this sort of shit, and it's really fucking inspired me. I'm like, fuck, I wish I knew some maths and physics. Like, I don't know any maths. I know the times tables. I struggle with long division. I suck at maths. In high school, I was decent at maths. Up until year 10, when homework started to become more important than classwork, I was good. I could keep up with the fucking Chinese kid. I fucking beat the Chinese kid. I remember as well, his name was Jackie. You know how you speak to some old cunt and you start talking about sport, and they'll start telling you an exaggerated version of how good they were at sport when they were younger? Well, this is my mathematics version of that. So this was the start of year 9, and the teachers are trying to find ways to kick me out of high school. But my test marks were decent. I just did no fucking homework at all. I had no interest in it, and they were always trying to sting me on the test, but I would pass the test. And that was the argument we always used to have, me and the teachers. They're like, you're not doing your homework. I'm like, I don't need to do the homework. I'm passing the tests anyway. They're like, that's not the point. I'm like, I think it is the point. I think learning is the fucking point, isn't it? And that really only works up until year 9. Anything after year 9, you have to do the homework because you get left behind. After year 9, if you don't put in the work, there's no way you can keep up intellectually. I found that out real quick because the drop-off from year 9 to like year 11 was pretty fucking steep. I went from year 9 effortlessly being one of the smarter dudes to year 11 also effortlessly being one of the dumbest cunts in the whole fucking school. But I remember we had this test coming up and it was a trigonometry test, and I just understood trigonometry for some reason. It was one of those rare things that I just looked at and it made sense to me. I could figure it out. It doesn't now. I remember looking at simple trigonometry a couple of years back and none of it made sense. I'm talking about back then it made sense. So we had this test coming up. I wasn't attending classes at all at the time. I was getting high all the time before classes. I was ditching school. But I knew I had to sit this test, otherwise they were going to fucking kick me out. So I went to class, I did the test, I fucking knew I nailed the test. I was the first one to finish the test and I finished so quick, everyone started laughing. Like, oh, he's just written his name on the top of the fucking test and he's walked out to get high again. And then a couple of weeks later, by some fucking coincidence, I ended up being in class the day they were handing back the tests. And he started handing out all the fucking test results. And Jackie, the Chinese kid, got 98%. 98%. And I'm telling you, that cunt studied hard. And the rest of the class, when Jackie got his 98%, were like, oh, fuck. Because you're talking about a class of like 65 percenters. If that. 55 percenters in that class. So Jackie gets his 98% back. And then he hands my test over 100%. Top of the class. Beat the Chinese kid. The teacher was pissed off because he fucking hated me. And that whole experience was very fucking damaging. It taught me a very bad lesson. What it taught me was I don't need to try to be good at something. And I followed that for most of my life. And ever since that fucking test, I think I've pretty much failed everything I've started. But it's always been in the back of my head that I might be good at maths. I'm not. I'm definitely 100% not. But in the back of my head, you know, the little ego's clicking over going, Boyle, you beat that Chinese cunt in year 9 and you were high and you weren't attending classes. Maybe with a little bit of guidance, you could have been fucking Einstein. You know, you start thinking those bullshit thoughts. So getting back to my point, I've been listening to this Donald Hoffman guy and the way he talks about mathematics and all that sort of shit has just fucking blown me away. And I'm like, I would really like to know what he's talking about. And I'm like, maybe I'll start teaching myself maths. I'll have to start from scratch again. And it'll probably take 15, 20 years to even get close to anything. And I probably won't even do it either. But I haven't been able to shake it out of my head. Start learning maths. And I'm like, all right, should I start learning maths? How do I even start learning maths? And then I thought to myself, well, let's see exactly what type of genius you are, Boyle. Let's just buy a simple fucking Rubiks Cube. Before you start diving into space-time and geometric unity and the theory of relativity, how about you just buy a fucking colourful square and see if you can figure that out, you fucking idiot. So that's what I've done. Instead of diving headfirst in some bullshit math stream that I've been holding for the last like 25 years and almost definitely getting nowhere with it and quitting within a week and then feeling depressed with myself for the next 20 years, I'm like, do the fucking Rubiks Cube. If you can figure out the Rubiks Cube, you have permission to start dipping your toes into maths and science. But until you do the Rubiks Cube, just shut the fuck up. Alright, that is it for me tonight. If you're enjoying the podcast, give it a share around with your friends, your family. Put it on loudspeaker and play it around the dinner table. Enjoy, and I'll see you the fuck later.